Hey there, my fellow lunatics, and welcome to Dakon's Madhouse. Hey there, my fellow lunatics. Do you like free stuff? Of course you do. The wonderful people at Fireshine have given me several keys for Corekeeper, and I'm giving them away to my subscribers. So if you haven't bought the game yet, or you have a friend who hasn't bought the game yet, listen up. I am giving away keys for PC, Xbox Series S or X, and PlayStation 5. Unfortunately, Sony region locks their keys, and the ones I have are for North America and Europe. So if you're playing on a PlayStation, I only have keys for those two regions. PC and Xbox keys are global though, and everyone can enter for a chance to win. To enter this competition, you need to subscribe to my channel and leave a comment on any video with the hashtag MAD4CK and a hashtag for what you play on, whether it's Xbox, PlayStation 5, or PC. This competition is running from September 25th until December 9th, 2024. I'm going to announce winners 3 times. The first set of winners will be announced in mid-October, the second in mid-November, and the final winners will be announced at the end of the competition. Each time I'll be giving away 2 PlayStation 5 keys, 2 Xbox keys, and 2 PC keys. You only have to enter once to be entered into all 3 drawings, so be sure to subscribe, leave a comment with your hashtags, and have a wonderful holiday season. Stay happy, stay healthy, and above all, my friends, stay crazy. Hey there, everybody. Today we are doing a build that I know many of you have been asking for. This is my crit build. Let's get started. So the helm you're going to need is the Atlantean Worm helm. This drops off of the Atlantean Worm boss. You're also going to need the ninja garments and the ninja leggings. Both of these can be fished up in shimmering sea water. If you're not playing melee, then it really doesn't matter what you put into your lantern slot, but if you are playing with melee, you're going to want the orb lantern. This is craftable at the Scarlet Workbench. The glass bead necklace is what we've got in our necklace slot, and this drops off of various crates, chests, and destructible items in the Shimmering Frontier. For our rings, I'm using polished golden spike rings in both slots. This is craftable at the Jewelry Workbench. You need to have at least an 80 in your crafting skill and have the Jewelry Master skill in order to craft these. For our offhand, I'm using the Concealed Blade. Now, this is probably one of the items that you have more wiggle room on. If you really want to get your crit chance up to 100%, then you're going to want to use the Concealed Blade. This drops off of assassins in the desert. However, you don't need to use it. You can have a slightly lower crit chance, and you can use something else in this slot instead. If you prefer to use a different offhand item, I recommend Omeros Beak if you're melee, or the Hydra Tooth if you are ranged. If you need something to improve your mobility, the Rift Lens or the Azios Dash Feather are also excellent choices. When it comes to bags, if you're not playing melee, it doesn't really matter too much, so I just went ahead and decided to use Morpha's Bubble Bag. This drops off of the slime boss Morpha in the Sunken Sea. From a support damage standpoint, I also grabbed the Tome of the Deep so that I have at least one summon going, and this can be found in various destructibles, chests, jellyfish, and various other breakable objects within the Sunken Sea. Now, when it comes to your weapon choice for this build, you have a lot of options. I have found that pretty much any of the good endgame ranged weapons will work just fine, as well as any of the decent endgame melee weapons. I have tested bosses and general creature kills with all of these weapons that I'm showing here, and every single one of them has worked pretty much equally as well. So use the ranged or melee weapon of your choice. It really doesn't matter. For pets, I highly recommend the Owlux for this build or the Theramoth. And with either one, I recommend getting the Spirit of the Hawk buff to improve your critical hit chance in as many slots as possible. Mine here has 4 of them. The best you can do without cheating is 5 though. When it comes to skills, there are only a couple that are crit specific. One of them is in the ranged tree, and it is the amplified precision skill, which gives you 40% critical hit damage boost. The next is in the gardening tree with thorny weapons, which gives you an additional 25% critical hit damage boost. And then finally in the magic tree, we've got True Sight for an additional 5% critical hit chance. When it comes to the buff food, it's going to depend on whether you're using melee or ranged, or really if you're using magic, because you could theoretically use magic for this build, although it's really not ideal since you don't have the ideal magic setup. I recommend that you check out my video on buff foods to get all the details on how to actually craft all of this food that I'm showing off here on the screen now. If you are going to use a mage build though, I do highly recommend that you use the arcane staff, because even though the build isn't really designed around this, the arcane staff does still work because the critical hit chance will work very, very well when mixed with mana channeling so that you get your mana recovered. The fast attack speed of the arcane staff makes it worth using with this build. I've already mentioned this, but the weapon versatility of this build is one of its greatest strengths. You can be melee, ranged, or magic and still be effective with this build. It absolutely melts bosses, and even when roaming around, there's very little risk of being overwhelmed. If you're playing melee, the daggers are a little risky, especially when exploring in the passage, so you'll want to be cautious in that instance. But the extra damage that melee does over ranged helps mitigate some of that risk. I even found the Rune Song to be an effective weapon in this build for endgame, and there's not a lot of times I can recommend the Rune Song for anything endgame. Honestly, I struggled to come up with weaknesses for this build. Even without the buff food, this build is formidable. It lacks direct damage buffs, but it more than makes up for that with its insanely high crit chance and damage. It has a high enough dodge that you'll notice it sometimes. Its armor isn't bad, and I even have a slight hit point regen. This build works well both offensively and defensively. Truly one of my favorite builds. I hope you found this video informative and helpful. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit that like button, subscribe for future content, and if you are feeling really generous, please join us on Patreon or become a YouTube member. Your support means the world to me, and I can't do it without you. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. Stay happy, stay healthy, and above all, stay crazy.